Okay, welcome. Happy Monday, everybody. August 19th, and it's Mattsby's morning now, not markets in the morning. Haha, changed it. Anyways, we're gonna be starting with the Nasdaq E-mini futures here. Well, let's pull that up right here. And just going to start here on the daily chart for you guys just to see what's developing for today. And it's in the cloud, right? It's back above all the resistance here. Now it's looking like support, which means there could be a possibility for the NASDAQ E-mini futures to continue higher up to this 20,000 zone, maybe 2,100, maybe 2,200 or so. And you can see that it's looking more and more bullish day by day, right? And it's even looking to challenge the previous highs over here set back in August 1st. And that's looking pretty good for a continuation as well. So possibly today could be a good day, right? Maybe there could be some like selling pressure later in the week or so to retest levels. But I think today at least could be a good day. We'll see where that brings. And if we look at the weekly chart where it closed, yeah, so it did close well above the conversion line. So I could see maybe even today, maybe tomorrow or later, that price could possibly go back and maybe want to retest that level in the low 19s. So you got to keep that in the back of your head. But essentially, overall, this is still a bullish development where it's a breakout. And even if it did come back down, it would just be a successful backtest. Good morning, Ivan. And let's look at the S&P on the daily just to see some similarities. And this is looking better and better, right? Look at that. On the daily chart for the S&P Futures, it's above the daily cloud. And that's looking like it's support right now, right? So if that continues, then you could probably see a push higher and higher. Then this cloud could be support and could take off, right? So this is looking a little bit better than the Nasdaq futures. So there is a possibility for everything to just continue to rise and not really retest levels yet, since the S&P is looking better and better. Good morning, Cass. Good morning, Jules. Good morning, Podge. Yeah. Afternoon for you. And let's see. Let's take a look at the QQQ just to see. Yeah, that lines up with the E-mini futures, right? And so far, pre-market, it's up 76. So that could continue to the top of the cloud in the days to come. So that's going to be maybe a 590, 588 resistance. And right now there's a support of around, 488, not 5. And a support around 461, 462, just around there. So this is the range from a day-to-day basis right now for the QQQ. And let's see here. We'll look at Tesla, of course, pre-market. Where's that going to go? So it's going to probably open the day right around there, which is still under resistance. So if you're expecting a fantastic, crazy bullish day or tomorrow or even maybe a week, it could be a little bit muted, mainly for the fact that it's still under resistance right here, 219, then more resistance at 221, then more resistance at 223. So this zone is going to be maybe difficult to break through on a day-to-day basis, but once it does break through, that'll be a bullish signal. So if I see any kind of daily candle close above 224, then I'll be happy for a continuation, right? Because then that can mean a continuation up towards the 230s, maybe 234, 235, or that zone. But essentially what I'm looking for a weekly candle close for on Friday is a close above this 382. That's at a minimum. So the 221.26, that's what I'm really looking at. And if that happens, then I think there could be a new possibility of a continuation higher. So this week I think is kind of important to close above that. If not, it'll still be just more resistance for the future weeks as well. So Got to see if it can continue that momentum. But on a day-to-day basis, there's going to be some struggles to get above there just because of the resistance I'm showing you right here, right? Good morning from Hong Kong. 早上好. Oh, okay. What else here? Palantir. How's that looking? Whoa, look at that. 32.78. I'm going to go to my log scale chart here because this is what I mentioned on my weekly update for Palantir, where it's going to open, right? Where is it going to open? And look at that. It's going to open above my angle. Looking like that in what, 22 minutes? And yeah, if that happens, then the potential to continue up to the ARK is greater and greater. And flipping this back to a support for the week would be great. But what I don't want to see is really an open here and then a weekly close down here. If that were to happen, then basically that would just be like a retest of a support zone in the 30s. So since it's going to open above my angle, I want to see a continuation now. And I want to see it continue up to the ARK, and maybe not this week, right? But maybe in the weeks to come, we'll get up to the $36 level. And as long as that angle holds as a new support, which is going to sit for this week, maybe around 32.30, right? 32.30, 32.25. If the week finishes above that level, then that'll lead to possibly more continuation higher and higher. So keep an eye on those levels for Palantir, and nothing really else matters in my opinion, because I want to see that get flipped back to a support, and I want to see a continuation up to 36 sooner than later to continue that momentum. And let's see some ARKK, right? That one had a lot of people fooled, even me, right? When it broke down here, it was like, oh no, breaking that angle, but it's just the pattern it's been doing. The V bottom, right? The V bottom below that orange angle and a V bottom below the orange angle. So the trend is intact for ARK. That means the trend is intact for the growth stocks, which means the trend is intact for a lot of things in the future, right? Which means nothing is looking that bearish at all. So if you put on that weekly Ichimoku for that, you can see that it's running into resistance, just like Tesla, right? The bottom of the cloud. We'll see where it opens, right? It's at 44.20 right now, and the bottom of the cloud sits around 44.16. So it could open above that resistance, right? Which is a good sign to continue up to that 440 or 44.64 level right there. And if that can get broken, then again, it'll have free range to go up to 46 again. 46. So yeah, everything's looking good. Let's see, Zim and XRP. Yeah, let me take a look at that. Let me just look at IWM first before I get to those. And IWM is looking like it might open above resistance too, right? Resistance is 212.67. And this candle looks like it wants to open up at 213. So that is a good thing. And like I've mentioned before, candles opening above resistance is always a positive thing, because then that means there's less resistance above, right? That's just the way to think about it. And eventually that previous resistance could be flipped to a support. So got to watch that 212.67 going into the weekly close. But if that can open above, then it has potential to continue on a week to week basis. But on a daily basis, you can still see, oh, it's doing the same thing. The baseline is still going to close a day maybe above that as well. So that's a good sign too for a continuation higher. But we need to pay attention to the daily resistance right here. And it's basically this zone right here where these wicks are. You can see wick, wick, wick. That's going to be some resistance for the IWM getting up there, which means any chance of getting back up to maybe 215 or even up to like these wicks up here to 217, 218, there could be some resistance for IWM before it really wants to go higher. But good news all around. A lot of things look like they want to open above some resistance, so just got to let them run, right? You can't fight it. Don't want to short it. You just got to let those run. ZIM. Okay, Zim integrated shipping services daily chart. Yeah, it's looking pretty good, right? It's gonna open way up here. $22, that's gonna be above the cloud. That's gonna be above all the resistance, right? But it's not above this resistance up here. And it's looking like it might want to try to fill that gap too. So it could run up to 22.75, right? Before any kind of major sell-off. So we'll see. But on a weekly chart, you can see it's way up there as well. So this zone that it's getting into, you can see there's a lot of wicks, right? There's a wick there, wick there, wick, wick. That means there's a lot of selling pressure in this zone. So would you get bullish at resistance? I would not, right? So this is approaching that resistance. Like the move to be made was back here when chart was starting to get more bullish, right? Like basically back on August 12th when it kind of was flipping the conversion on baseline to support on the daily chart. That's the time to like, okay, this is on the top side of everything now except for the cloud. So just a matter of time. And sure enough, that was the matter of time just now. So it was pointing in the right direction that I wanted to go higher. And sure enough, that's the direction it finally went. But now it's back at a resistance zone. Could go a little bit higher, but it's back at resistance. And we'll look at XRP for a golden cross. Is that what we're looking at? So daily chart, yeah, daily chart's looking pretty good. It's getting back above the conversion line there. Let's look at the moving averages. Let's see. Yeah, the 50 is on top of the 200, right? Or is it yet? Not yet, right? The 50 is 54594 and the 200 is 54659. So it looks like probably tomorrow that'll happen for the daily cross, right? And that is a bullish thing. Yes, I do like it, but it basically what it does really is adds more confluence that it's at support. So if price does go back down to that 54, 55 zone, like you got the top of the cloud there, you got the 200, the 50, you got so much support there that it probably is not going to break through that, right? So that is really looking positive for XRP, and it is outperforming Bitcoin. It's outperforming everything else. Let's just look at that XRP to Bitcoin price before I move on to MicroStrategy. And yeah, so you can see this outperformance with, and you even have a golden cross there already for the XRP and Bitcoin price, right? And let's just go back in time. When's the last time we really saw that kind of bullishness? Yeah, maybe it wasn't here. It was still underneath. Yeah, where it had a bullish cross, it just launched up right up here, right? Look at that. Back in July 2023. It just went up much higher for that XRP Bitcoin price. So it's kind of in that similar situation where something wants to happen, right? And right now, the only resistance for XRP Bitcoin now is that baseline right up there at the 0.0001, right? That is the only resistance left before it really wants to see if it goes higher. So that's good to see for XRP Bitcoin price. And MicroStrategy. So daily, still under a lot of resistance, right? This is not a surprise, essentially because of the way Bitcoin is performing as well. And yeah, so it looks like your support's going to be right around the 133 still. It's still battling that conversion line as a support zone. But look, it just can't get back into the cloud. And then there's way more resistance above. So might be a boring week for MicroStrategy, and it might even come back down, right? It might even retest some levels simply because there's maybe too much resistance above here for MicroStrategy. And even more confluence of that is that the 143 level up here is also the conversion line resistance as well. So just a really tight range. And if this 133 level is lost, there's a possibility of coming back down towards the cloud in the lower 100s. So got to keep an eye on that. But I think if it did go down there, that's a very bullish scenario, simply because you're going to have the 50-week come up towards to it, right? And you're going to have lots of demand in that zone. Like if you look previously with this candle body, that wick, right? This wick here, there's a lot of demand in that zone. So essentially, I think that would be a very bullish situation if it did retest that. And CLSK, we'll look on the daily chart first. And yeah, it's actually holding levels too. So it looks like it possibly wants to continue up towards the 200, right? And that is at 1365, 200-day moving average, which coincides with my blue level there. And that blue level sits also right there around 1365. So essentially that's our daily resistance, but the weekly resistance is going to get in the way here, right? So a new week is going to open right here. And what is right there? It's below the cloud. And being below the cloud is going to add more resistance when it goes up, right? That's going to become resistance now, because you see it was a support right here, this red leading span B line right here. But now it's going to open a candle underneath the cloud. And that's going to mean that's resistance up here at 1277. But even more resistance is going to be that 50-week at right there, 1211, right? So I'm not sure if it's going to have a great week because of that resistance above, but it's just building a base is what it looks like right now. And it's building a base on top of the 200-week moving average, which I want that to hold, really. That's the line in the sand for weekly closes. And so far, every week it's closed above it. And that line is 1085. All right, see more requests. HNT. Yeah, HNT weekly chart, that's all you really need. It's back above the cloud, right? That's a good sign. And for me, that looks like it wants to go higher. And the points I'm looking at is up here where these candles are sitting, like 920, 970, maybe even the low nines right here, like 9 even, right? I can see that being the target now that this is trying to flip to a support. So there's really no resistance. All of this is support now, right? So this is a good situation to be in for HNT. And I think $9 could come sooner than later. And Tau. So I'll just show Tau here on the weekly chart. And this is basically all you need for that too. Support is down here with my blue level for the GAN, right? 264. That's all you need. And actually price last week held above it, and this week is holding above it too. So it's looking like a new base is trying to be formed for Tau. And for me, that means it might go to the top of the arc, where you can see the arc here was a previous resistance, the blue arc, and then it flipped it to a support, right? And now it's a resistance again. So it's going to come up here and be a resistance again at 324. So just in the middle of a range between my blue level and the top arc here. So I don't really need anything else besides that. I can take these off and you can see it more clearly, right? Yeah, previous resistance, flip to a support, back to a resistance. So now it's still resistance. That's all you need. And yes, ASPN, that did the least likely situation in my eyes here. Let me go to my GAN chart here. ASPN. So let me take up everything. So I showed you guys this last week, and I showed you how all that resistance, and it just ignored it all, right? Ignored it all. So now it's support, right? And this is the least likely situation, having the bullish candle close above everything, because you had so many levels of resistance just on the GAN alone, and not even including the Ichimoku here. Like, you had the cloud in the way too up there as well. So this is really doing the least likely situation, and it just won bullish engulfing candle up 22%, closed above my 45-degree angle, closed above the orange level and both arcs. And that is really all you need to know for ASPN. So this is essentially now going to be support. That's the support I'm looking to hold right there around 28.90. I want to see hold on weekly candle closes, and if that does, then we'll see a continuation higher, and that continuation could be up to the previous highs here around 31.50 or the low 31s. So essentially, yeah, this is looking more and more bullish. This candle cannot be ignored. This is proof that it doesn't care about any of this resistance, and it just flipped it all to support. So the first level you got to watch is that 28.90, 29 level. And as long as that holds, then I think a continuation can continue. Zcash. Yeah, ZEC. We'll go to Zcash here. Yeah, on a daily basis, it's getting weaker. It's like a rounding top for the daily chart. You can see that it's just rounding, and it's now going below the conversion line. We'll see where the day closes. It could close back above, but usually when you have this rounding top, it wants to retest levels, and that level could be 35, right? Could be around 35 again. But on a weekly chart, it's really extended, so that doesn't really have any support until down here in the 30s. So got to pay attention to that on a daily basis, and this is important to notice that closing a day below that leads to weakness, and that flips it to resistance, and that means the 42.35 will become some resistance. So just got to be cautious for a back test here, and that could be happening in the next days or weeks to come. Let's see, we got some market open, so we'll do a couple more. PayPal. I think I talked about this on Friday. But yeah, PayPal is extremely bullish now. Very, very good. It's almost getting back above these levels up here, this is really the only thing holding it back now. Like this candle here and this one way up here and this level here. So basically, if you just draw a box, like this zone is essentially holding it back right now, all the way up to here. So I think we can close above this resistance up here, maybe the $70 level, then it'll just be ready to go. But right now, I think there could be some consolidation just because that resistance zone is there. And I think there's a possibility to even maybe coming back down and closing this gap to around the 66. So we got to keep an eye on that sometime in the future. I'm not saying today, maybe later this week or next week or whatnot, but just got to notice that this is resistance still, and this is going to be your support zone around here, around 66. Let's see the moving averages. Yeah, they're way down there, so it doesn't matter. Let's see NVIDIA. And yeah, NVIDIA is still looking pretty good too, right? You can see that pre-market, it is flat, not doing anything. But essentially, yeah, it's just in a big range. Just using this GAN alone, you can see clearly how it was a breakout, a back test of that breakout level, and now it's continuing higher. So, but it's not going to explode higher because if you see here, it basically just closed that gap right here, and now it's just probably going to try to find a new base. And if you put on some of the Ichimoku and everything else, you can see that it's also running into resistance on the daily chart up here into the 128s. So essentially, support is kind of a wide range for it. Support could be all the way back down to the bottom of the cloud around 110, and the resistance could be up here at 128. So it's kind of like in a daily range. And on the weekly chart, you can see that the before the 110 is the 115 level for the conversion line there. So you got to see that that's probably going to hold for support, but there could be a back test of that level as well. So do not be afraid of that. If it happens, this is still a bullish looking chart on a week-to-week basis. And plus, it's back above all this GAN resistance here as well, which is now going to be support. So this is really bullish for a continuation. Francois, good morning from Dubai. Good morning. Yes, so buy Tesla now or wait. Well, the time to buy Tesla was when I was talking about it, when it was at 198 here, the whole last week, right? And the week before that, I believe, yeah, like during this time, it was down here. It's like it's the time to buy, and now it's approaching resistance. And I think you got to be cautious at that because it could come back down and retest levels, right? So I think what's possible is that 205 could get back tested, right? But on a daily chart basis, I think what's really important to focus on is getting into the cloud here. And if it gets into the cloud and above that 382 level, then I think the possibility to continue higher is greater. But right now, it's just I'm always cautious at resistance, and it's really close to resistance, if not there already, because last week it already hit, right? So just got to pay attention to that level. And I'm going to be cautious until it closes a daily candle above this 221 level right here, the 221.26. If it closes a daily candle above that, then I'll be more and more bullish and be maybe it's time to buy. But now I cannot say that because it's at resistance, and I'm cautious at resistance. So we got 1 minute for the market open. Yeah, we'll look at CAS. I think I mentioned it on my X yesterday. And I mentioned that it lost this angle right here, right? This green angle right here, it lost it as a support. And anytime it loses things as a support, they drift sideways or down. And so I think it's going to get, this blue level is going to get retested. You can see how important that was going in the past, right? A previous resistance, support. So if it loses that support, it's going lower, right? It's going back to maybe 10 cents or even drift down that arc and go lower, right? So this is definitely a loss of momentum. It's not a good thing. And if it does not reclaim it, it's going to go lower. And I think at least back to 14.5. And if that gets lost, I think it's going to go much lower. So got to pay attention to that. And the market is open. We'll just take a look at some stocks right now because the market's open. We'll look at SMCI. Yeah, so that's a big resistance zone coming up here in the 800s. But even before that, there's more resistance, right, with the cloud right here. 663 up here, 728, and so on. Let's look at Carvana. CVNA. Okay, so Carvana, I drew this line up here to 450 just because I can see that as a trajectory over the long run, not anytime soon. I'd essentially, this is a really bullish situation where it's flipping arc to a support. So I think even if it loses the conversion line, I think that arc down there at 124, 125 could be your support for a continuation higher. But it is a little bit extended from the conversion line at 133. So what I could essentially see over the long run is just maybe drifting sideways, right, towards this, and then maybe going up later next year to get to that level. So we'll see. But if this angle ever gets lost as support, then it would lose some momentum and maybe not get to that 450 level. So I'm really going to be watching this angle a lot. If it holds support, great, 450. If it loses it, it's probably not going to get there anytime next year or 2026. So we'll see. This is going to be important when the time comes. So just pay attention to that when the time comes. Let's see. No, I didn't talk about FUBO GCAP. GCAP, a Malaysian stock. All right, yeah, just one look at this and I don't like it. It's back above here, but it's approaching resistance. And anything around 41 cents, I think it's a lot of pressure. But the trend is down, right? I don't buy stocks that have this keep making lower lows. So I think this is one look. You look at it, it's at resistance, and I don't like it. Let's see, FUBO. Yeah, FUBO is getting back above the conversion line, but still, it looks like it's trying to find a base here. So at least it's not making lower lows. So that's a good thing, right? From here, it held. So this has the potential to actually try to build a base. And this is something that GCAP did not have, right? It doesn't have this potential of building a new base because it kept making lower lows. So this has the potential to come up to the 240s and maybe get rejected, but it has the potential in the future to actually break that cloud simply because it built this new base already and it didn't make a lower low, right? So this is the importance of market structure right here, not making lower lows all the time and finding that new base. So I think there's a possibility this 177 could be support for a continuation higher, and then we'll reassess it when it gets back up towards the cloud. Oh, I see, Francois, you mentioned Intel as well. Let's see, I forgot about that one. So yeah, Intel had a terrible week, like 31% negative back in July, right? So ever since then, it could not recover at all. And even on a monthly basis, it's down there. And even if you put on some moving averages here, they're way up there, right? Right there as well. So nothing is looking good on this. Essentially, what I can see is price might be finding a bottom with these like tweezer bottoms here, but you got to know that this is going to be a big resistance zone. This previous support is when price comes back up, the 24-25 zone, that's going to be resistance, right? You don't even need any indicator to look at that. That's strictly just market structure right there. Previous support, flip to resistance. Nike. So yeah, Nike, I'll put on the monthly chart just because that's how I drew the GAN here. Essentially, it's back in that resistance zone that I mentioned for, what was that stock? Yeah, Intel, right? So if you draw the box here, it's back in there, like a previous support, flipping to resistance, right? And essentially, you can even go a little bit lower because it's really at the bottom of those candles right there, right? So this was a big support zone. See, support, 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 flip into resistance. So I don't really need to use anything else unless it starts to close candles back above that like $84 level, maybe. Then on a weekly basis, not a daily basis, or even a monthly basis, since this is a monthly chart, right? I think that would be what I'm looking for. Otherwise, I think it's going to drift sideways to this angle, maybe even come back down and get there sooner. So my target for Nike really doesn't change from maybe around the low 60s all the way up to maybe back down to the low 70s. We'll see. But if it can start to close monthly candles above that $84 level, then there's a possibility to build that base and get back to the ARK above. But you can see that this ARK still is going to be resistance. You can tell by this monthly wick there, that's very strong resistance. So the resistance up top is going to be in the hundreds, right? For maybe 105 all the way down to the high 90s, depending on time. So it's still a bearish market structure. Despite this 12% monthly candle, I think it really needs to prove itself in order to get back to like a base, like to prove to me that it's building a base that it wants to go higher. So, Fat Chin, do you think the Gann square could be applied and similarly viewed to a leveraged equity of a volatile asset, MSTX? Like the thing with leveraged accounts, you can use it, yes, but with the fees and with the maintenance costs and everything for leveraged accounts, that kind of eats into the price, and it kind of like if price doesn't do anything, it'll just drift down and based off of nothing. So it's not as accurate, I would say, when you're looking at leveraged assets, simply because it's not a true asset, right? It's a little bit manipulated a little bit just because of costs and everything. So I would not really utilize it and guarantee it with the GAN there. But when it comes to the real asset, yes, I would think it's very, very accurate. Let's see, CLOV, CLOV, Clover Health. Yeah, that one had a great few months in a row, right? Super good. And I think it's probably, yeah, above everything. But there you go. There's your resistance, the 200 week. That's going to be 391 coming up. And it still has a ways to fall to even retest any kind of support down here. So I think what you got to do is just be cautious because things are approaching resistance here. And support is kind of a long way to fall, like around 230, right? So just kind of floating there. It's a be cautious for me, right? If I were to look at it, just be cautious. AMD, well, let's look at these real quick. ARK is still positive. Palantir, yeah, it's, let's see where it opened though. I want to see. Okay, yeah, it didn't even open above that angle, right? That's what I'm talking about. It didn't open above the angle. It opened like right on it, which kind of means that it wants to just do nothing, right? Maybe it's going to test the lower levels first before it tries to go higher, but that just means this angle is still resistance and it's still going to battle it. So it did not open above it for Palantir. Yeah, I'll look at AMD. So let me just show you the GAN on AMD here. Look at how perfect this one is, right? This is the monthly chart. So I think because it has a lot of history, so I drew a monthly chart here. But you can see how well it held this like arc down here for both support and resistance. And then that blue level and now the green level was hit perfectly, was a resistance and still is, right? So this is the level, right? I can't really get excited about AMD until it closes another month back above maybe 155. Yeah. Yeah, above 155 I can get bullish again, but right now it's closer to resistance than it is support. But one thing when you look at the monthly Ichimoku, it's holding that baseline. So I think the max kind of pain situation was already experienced with this wick, right? So I think now this 140 level is going to hold as support, 141. So that's the range, really, 141 up to this 155, and nothing really exciting is going to happen until I think that flips my GAN level to a support. So just watch that 155 level on a monthly candle close, not just a weekly, month. Let's look at TON. Let's see. Let me go to my chart. So yeah, here's my KuCoin chart of TON, and on a month-to-month basis, you can see it perfectly how it just broke out of the arc, back tested the arc as support. That's a bullish formation, right? And on the weekly chart here, you can see that last week, yesterday, it closed basically a little bit above that angle, but it opened a new candle below it. So this angle is still resistance for TON. And that's the 690. That's the level I'm watching. I want it to break above. But you can see like the more and more weeks to come, the resistance is sloping up. So it's also the resistance is going to go higher and higher. So it could just keep following this angle all the way up until it gets to these candles up here. But essentially, it is bullish being back above the conversion line, but it is not going to break out because of my angle right there anytime soon. Let's see here. Really appreciate your streams and comments. Thank you. Thank you very much, Josh. All right, I think we'll do one last final look at the markets here. Maybe we'll take a look at Bitcoin first before I move on. Yeah, Bitcoin is doing nothing, right? It's just stuck under resistance. And like I said many times last week and yesterday on X, I said that price is probably going to go towards the cloud, wherever in time that'll be, whether it's down here at 53 or whether it's over here at 56 or whatever. I think this is the trajectory of Bitcoin, that it's not going to want to break out yet until it retests the cloud. So just got to give that time until maybe September sometime, right? Maybe September. EQIX. Equinix. Yeah, weekly chart looks fine, right? It's back above the cloud. It looks like it wants to be 100% bullish on the cloud. Even this is going to be turning green in the future here. So that's a good signal that it wants to continue higher. And I think what you got to look at is that it still can't break above these candles here because this is a previous resistance zone before it broke out. So that's kind of what it's battling right now. And if it can break above that, then I think there's a good chance of battling this resistance zone up here from the 860s all the way up to the 900s, right? So I think that could be a possibility, but it's got to get above these levels here, above maybe, what's that, 824 or so. And it's almost there, but it's got to close a week above it, I would say. But it's a bullish chart. Jupiter and render. All right, where's my render? There's render. It's in a demand zone right now. But one thing you got to look at is it started opening candles underneath the cloud. So that's your range. The top of my arc down there, $4, and the top of the angle here around 5.15 or so. That's your range. But opening below the cloud is going to mean more resistance when the time comes. So, and Jupiter. And Jupiter, I have again for this too. And essentially that level was perfect. Resistance broke out. There you go. It lost this angle as support. Now you can see it's drifting sideways. So I think the target is this purple angle, wherever that is in time. It could be here at 68 cents, or it could be this week at 54 cents, right? We don't know. So we'll see. But this is probably going to be the target before any kind of bounce. But the good news is it's holding a base right here. So yeah, just got to be patient with this one too. As everything in crypto right now, got to be patient. But overall, let's look at one last glance at the markets. So the QQQ is down 20 cents. SPY is up. The IWM is up. And where did the IWM open up? Yeah, it opened up the week above the conversion line, guys. So that's a positive thing. So that means that I'm going to expect that to hold throughout the week, 212.67. Like, can it go below during the week? Yes, but on Friday, I want to see it close above that 212.67. And yeah, we'll look at Palantir. Yeah, it's still around the flat zone, right around the angle. Let's see where it can close the week, right? If it can close the week above that angle, then I'll be really bullish again. But right now, it's just still battling the angle. Let's see. CrowdStrike is up nicely. Amazon, Apple, Meta, Tesla. Yeah, Tesla. Daily chart. Where are we at? Yeah, it's right at resistance right here. Right at resistance. So yeah, those are the levels, guys. And miners are just all flat. Nothing exciting, and that's because Bitcoin. So I think that's it for today, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.